Paul Watson, a very famous and renowned environmental analyst, once said that we buy a bottle of plastic water in a city where clean water comes out of its taps. And in the 1970s, if you talked to an average person and said, 30 years from now, you are going to buy water in plastic bottles and you are going to pay for that water more than gasoline, they would have looked at you as if you have gone out of your mind. But that's exactly what is happening nowadays. A typical American family unloading their weekly groceries would be seen to haul boxes of plastic water bottles. And most of us, on our way out to a soccer game or a baseball game, or even just going out of our homes, we see to grab a bottle of plastic water because it is very convenient and we think it's cheap. Last year I did an environmental class and we did extensive research and found out how these plastic water bottles are exploiting our environment. According to author R.J. Dolish of Problems with Bottled Water, he says that 50 billion plastic water bottles are consumed every year worldwide, out of which 30 billion are used in the US. That means 60% of the world's 60% of this water bottle is consumed by 4.5% of the world's population. The economic and environmental cost of making these bottles are astronomical. Today, since the usage of plastic water bottles are growing, I'm going to talk about and I'm going to share some information of how it has become an integral part of our lives, how it affects our environment, and how people are taking several steps to address this issue. The first point, imagine you are in the middle of San Francisco and you are thirsty. Most of us would go and grab a bottle of plastic water to quench our thirst. Why? Because we believe that water in plastic bottles are cleaner and safer. But research shows that plastic water bottles have less regulations to follow. And if water in these plastic bottles stay for more than 10 months, then plastic leaches into the water and the water gets toxic. We think that plastic water bottles are cheap. But why would we pay for something that is a free commodity? It's like buying air to breathe. Now that I have covered my first point, I'm going to the second point, how it has invaded our environment. And I'm going to start with its journey from its initial creation to its inevitable disposal. They are manufactured in petrochemical factories where they emit a lot of contaminants in the air, and it makes the air polluted, and people residing around these factories, they often complain of respiratory problems. And now just look at this slide. To make one bottle of plastic water, we use around 1/3 of fuel or oil and 7 bottles of water to make one plastic bottle. Just imagine how feasible it is. It isn't. And then what happens, and we just take 2 minutes to drink this water and we trash it, 90% of these water bottles, they land in landfills or they're incinerated, and only around 10% gets recycled. Once they are recycled, you can use them for carpeting, for synthetic decking, or to make new bottles or containers. But the ones that are incinerated, when they are burnt, they again release a lot of toxic into the air. And the ones that end up in landfills, they kind of pollute the soil. It affects the fertility of the soil. And this is what happens. Plastic bottles in the ocean, it affects the marine life. If it gets mixed into the air, the poison chemicals, it contaminates the air, and it also affects the fertility of the soil. And now I'm going to talk about a little more in what happens in the oceans. Lots of plastic materials are floating in the ocean, and it kind of contaminates the global seafood supply. And it kind of looks, over here, it looks as if these plastic bottles are trying to engulf our planet. And now that I have told you about how it affects our environment, I'm coming to my last point. What measures are taken across the globe to address this situation? Many countries across the globe are making conscious decisions to invest in improving clean water, public clean water infrastructure. In Grand Canyon last year, they banned the use of plastic water bottles and they substituted it with lots of water filling stations, kind of encouraging us to reuse our water bottles. Professor Hanna points out that in 2009, in a place in Australia, in a small town, Budanan, they banned the use of plastic bottles in the vicinity of the town because they wanted to encourage the health of the community, and also they wanted to protect the environment. In 2010, Canada was the first country to ban the use of BPA, and it declared that BPA, it's a chemical that is used while making plastic water bottles. It is a toxic substance. Lots of countries like USA, Sweden, they have also limited the use of BPA. And now at the end of my information, I would like to share that people are getting aware, and there is a lot of productive things that we are doing to address this issue, and people nowadays, they have become aware and they want to save their wallet, their health, and their planet.